Well, joining us via Skype from Edo State is the Deputy Director, Africa Network for Environment and Economic Justice, Leo Atapu. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, indeed. Well, federal government insists, in spite of some worries and concerns here and there as to how exactly this will work. But let's get your view first on this planned distribution of 5,000 coming from the Abacha loot, of course, to 300,000 households in Nigeria.
Well, I think it's a welcome development from my own point of view, given the fact that a recent report by Brookings Institute indicates that Nigeria has overtaken India in terms of ranking of countries with extreme poverty. Nigeria being positioned in such a ranking indicates that there is the need for government to do something urgent to get people out of extreme poverty. And one way that can be done quickly is to perhaps see how this money could be better disbursed to people living in extreme poverty in Nigeria. And so if the Abacha is targeting that segment of Nigerians, I think it's a welcome development at this point in our history.
All right. Seeing it as a good development, like you put it, one would say that if you consider the inflation rate, what 5,000 can do to a household, not even an individual yet. I wonder how impactful this is, because a lot of Nigerians are saying, when you talk about giving people, doling out monies to people, you can't even tell if these people are going to use the money for the right thing and it would take people out of poverty in the first place.
Yeah.
We have been engaging the Office of the National Cash Transfer Office, and some explanations have come out as a result of such engagement. The 5,000 naira will not be given every month as it were, but it is like every bi-monthly, the beneficiaries will get 10,000 naira. You will agree with me that 10,000 naira to someone living in extreme poverty, to household living in extreme poverty, that could just kick off some micro business that could, trigger of some improvement in their livelihoods. We have had some experience, because this is not the first time cash transfer is being carried out by the NCTO. It's been on, but the one specifically for the Abacha loot commences this month, July. And we intend to monitor the disbursement as civil society. It is part of the plan put in place by both the government and the Switzerland authorities, including even the World Bank. This is also about the first time civil society will be involved in MOU signing anywhere in the world for the return of this kind of loot. And that is why civil society from the MOU signing are involved. And so we are monitoring the disbursement of this money. And we don't want to take a pessimistic point of view going forward. We want to be optimistic that this will work out. We compare this with what happened in 2005 during the return of Abacha 1. This kind of openness and transparency we have not gotten. So going back to the issue, 10,000 naira to a household living in extreme poverty could just trigger off even just groundnut selling, or maybe whatever, income generating activity that such a household can, particularly in the rural communities, that could commence something, to take people out of extreme poverty in a considered view.
Yeah, that is, of course, hoping that they really do get the 10,000 naira at the end of the day. There is
Yes.
an age-old Chinese saying that goes this way: don't give me fish, teach me how to fish. Some critics of this style of doling out monies to, well, the poorest of the poor, a lot of people say is really not sustainable in terms of the long-term value that it would add to the lives of the people, and of course the impact on Nigeria's economy. That if you use this money, for example, to build hospitals, to provide schools and what have you, that is how you impact the lives of the poor.
Well, there are different ways of impacting the life of the poor. Building hospital is a good idea, and people who hold those views are entitled to their opinions. For us, we also think that you can also combat poverty from another direction, empowerment of the people that are directly afflicted. Because one of the things that we also want to see in the war against corruption is the fact that the victims of corruption get a direct benefit. In terms of building hospitals, you will agree with me that that is a capital project that will have to take some time to commence the design, the construction, the equipping of the hospital, and so on and so forth. For you to do that, you will also go into some kind of hire and contractors to come and build, and then their fees, contractors' fees, and all of that will have to happen. So, and then before you know, because our experience in monitoring the Abacha 1 loot in 2005 showed that there was clear cases of re-looting of the loot. So for us, we want to see a situation where Abacha 2 is not re-looted. And one clear way that this can happen very quickly is by the carrying out some kind of micro empowerment of the poorest of the poor amongst us in Nigeria.
All right.
And
You have talked about, Leo, you've talked about the mechanism to check some of these disbursement, like you said. But one other concern is when it comes to identifying the household, the poorest of the poor, what mechanism are there to really check which household belong to the poorest of the poor, in what location, in what state? What criteria is used to collate all of those, and whether those data is whether the data is available now before the disbursement is going to commence this month in July?
Oh yes, the data for the 19 states that are being covered by the scheme currently, data have been generated, working in partnership with the World Bank. The government had gone round the 19 states. They have set out criteria for all the states in the country, the 36 states, including the FCT in the country. They have set out criteria for states to get their citizens to benefit from the cash transfer process. Some states complied with all of those arrangements, and some states did not comply with those arrangements. So the states that have complied, the researchers have moved into those states, and they have been able to identify the poorest of the poor households in those 19 states that have been identified. There are also plans to cover all other states, working in collaboration with the state governors and the state governments to ensure that all the states are covered by the government plan. This is, what happens sometimes when you want to carry out some policy programs. Some states will begin to read politics into every move you make, and so on and so forth. So states that have complied, they are already in the register. They are already in the register, and they are sure the ones that are going to benefit from the scheme that commences this month, from the explanation we have gotten from the government.
You
There is
seem
a
to really have a lot of confidence in the process, of course, of achieving this. But I'm just imagining, I'm just wondering the huge logistics that would have gone into trying to actually identify this poorest of the poor in the 19 states that you have stated. And of course, it is expected that this will go around all 36 states. How much is it even costing government to come up with those logistics and data compared to the amount of money, the $322 million that is meant for these poor people all across Nigeria? First off, I'm even glad that you mentioned that it's not the first time that the conditional cash transfer has happened. It did happen in 2016, December of 2016. Are you able, your organization, African Network for Environment, have you been able to assess the success or otherwise of that, first attempt to give money to the poor?
Well, we are currently carrying out a scoping study to capture all of that, and that will form baseline for us to carry out the monitoring exercise. The study we are carrying out will give us all the details that we need to monitor the exercise. We expect a report any moment from now before we hit the streets going around to monitor the disbursement. But just to say that there is a register that we have cited, the researchers are also going to use the register to perhaps also dig into the details and then give us some baseline information that we will use to carry out our monitoring exercise. But just to say that it isn't like as bad as what we had in 2005 when we also monitored the Abacha loop disbursement.
All right. Thank you very much, Leo Atakbu. We'll be following to see how the disbursement will reach out to actually the poorest of the poor. Leo is the Deputy Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice. He was reaching us from Benin City in Edo State. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, we'll take a short break. When we'll come back, it will be time for the news update and then more on TVC Breakfast. Stay with us.